If you're a producer who's been thinking about performing live, but you've gotten lost in the endless possibilities and you're confused about where to start, then this video is going to save you months of confusion. Because I just went through that process and made a bunch of crucial mistakes, and in the meantime I discovered that how most producers try to approach their first live set is completely backwards. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which questions to ask yourself, why starting simpler is a lot smarter than chasing a dream setup, and the reality check about live performance that completely changed my approach to it. But here's what I wish someone would have told me before I started this whole journey. As I said in the last video, I've always wanted to be a live act, and DJing was just that bridge until I had the knowledge, the skills, and the music to finally go for that live setup. So when I finally felt ready, I did what probably all of us would do. I went straight to my dream setup. Octatrack, analog rhythm, and a synth. That was the dream. But as you might expect, here's what happened. I got completely overwhelmed. The gear is super difficult to learn. The learning curve on the octatrack is super steep. And in the end, when I finally understood how all the gear worked individually, I still had no idea how to actually construct a proper working live set. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. And honestly, the problem wasn't even the gear. It was that I skipped one very crucial first step that everybody should be doing. That step is the most important step of all of them. Start small. And by starting small, I mean start very small. Start with your DAW, preferably Ableton Live, just because it has the session view, which is perfect for live performance. Just do it on your laptop and just construct the first idea for a live set, get the set flow going, and understand how to actually build a live set from start to finish. This way you can start getting a feel what live performance actually means. Because here's the thing, having the visuals of your DAW just really helps you understand the concept of a live performance. You don't get this with a lot of DAWless gear. And then I discovered something that completely changed my perspective. I was researching a lot of different live acts just to figure out what other artists are doing, and I noticed one trend that stuck with everybody. No matter how much gear they have on stage, the setup is very similar and the setup is very easy. We all only have two hands. It gets sweaty during the performance. It can get hectic, so we don't want to do too much. We still want that safety. And that's the difference between like a completely improvised live setup, where you stand on the stage with your modular rack and everything is improvised. You start the night and you don't even know what's going to happen. So even if there are like 10 pieces of gear, a lot of artists aren't actually doing that many things live at the same time. The performance is real. It's just not as complex as it seems. So when you see an artist having a piano, a keyboard, 2 synths, and 5 controllers on stage, they only have 2 hands. So the entire performance is optimized for usage with just 2 hands. So after talking to touring DJs and diving very deep into this topic, I realized that there are 3 decisions that you need to make in the right order. So most producers, including me, start with what gear do I need or what gear do I want? But the real first question is, what do I want to perform live? So the right questions you need to ask yourself at this stage. Do you want to rearrange your existing tracks? Do you want to create new music live on the spot? Do you want a hybrid approach? And how much of your studio sound do you need to or want to recreate live? So since the music that I want to perform and the music that I produce is that very arranged melodic house and techno style, I can't do loop-based live sets. It will just not sound good, it will just not translate. So I know that I need to somehow stick to my arrangement and keep to the original arrangement, while still being open to change something, draw out the break, draw out the build, maybe even move faster towards the build. I just can't be looping every section for minutes, as it just will be super noticeable. I also want to create the main drums and some of the synthesizers live, so I have to keep that in mind when selecting my gear. Once I knew that, my gear choices became very obvious to me. The second decision you need to make is, do you want simple or do you want complex? And here's where I made my biggest mistake. I went straight for the complex DAWless dream setup that I had, but I didn't really have a plan about live performance. So all of that complexity quickly turned into a lot of confusion. So here are the DAW-based advantages that I just completely ignored to chase my dream setup. The first and probably most obvious is you get visual feedback. If I'm in a DAW, if I'm using something like this push right here, I get clean visual feedback. The second advantage is a very familiar workflow. You already know your DAW's workflow from your production, so jumping from production to live set, you don't have to learn anything new. And again, with the visual feedback, it's very easy to see what happens when. If I check on the push, if I press the next scene, I can see which elements are going to start. I can see where I can start what element. Super easy to understand. And if I ever want to add a track in the middle of something or rearrange something, put track 2 to track position 8 and move track 8 to track position 3, I can easily move that by just copying and pasting that. That's not as easily done on most DAWless gear. And then the last and very big advantage is it's very immediate. You can start right now. You can open up your PC, open up your laptop, and you can start working on your live set. It's not as easy with DAWless gear. So that was kind of my reality check I needed to go through before I could move on. DAWless looks great, feels great, and is my dream. But to get started, I need to understand the concepts first, and I really urge you to not miss out on that step yourselves. Decision number 3 is start performing versus perfect setup. I spent months researching the perfect setup for myself without ever actually doing a live performance apart from DJing. So I was already optimizing my live set before I even understood what I was exactly optimizing for and what I was looking for in my live set. So here's what I should have done. I should have started in Ableton. I should have started basic without any controllers, without any gear, and just do an easy Ableton live session. Try around, play around with that. And then when I fully understood it, when I fully grasp it, then I know what do I want to control, what do I want to change, and then I can add a controller based on that feeling. And in the end, the big problem is you can't build your perfect setup without performing live, but you can't learn what live performance feels like without your setup. So here's my new approach. We start in phase 1. It's the simple setup just to learn the basics of live performance. And whenever I'm talking about live performance, I'm not talking about actually having to perform in front of a big audience or on a big stage. Just going through the motions and practicing in your studio will already help you a lot. Then phase 2. Identify what I'm missing or what doesn't work. And then we get to phase 3, build the actual final setup based on actual experience. But here's what really opened my eyes about gear selection. First, I had to take a lesson on limitations. Every piece of equipment has some form of limitations. The octatrack is incredibly powerful, but its time stretching is terrible and it has an incredibly steep learning curve. And by now it's just very outdated, so that the sound standard is not up to most of the other gear that's out there at the moment. Then if we look at the push again, it's a very, very intuitive workflow. But it's just a massive unit. It's heavy and it's big. So there's no perfect choice, just trade-offs. So here's what actually matters when selecting your gear. So number 1 is, can you use your gear confidently and under pressure? Number 2, does it serve your musical goals? And number 3, can you fix the situation if something breaks? So a lot of artists I talked to during my research, they all told me that they had this big aspiration for a very complex live act, but when they started with their very first and very simple iteration, they never actually ended up building on top of that, just because what you think in your studio is very simple to do, once you turn it into a live scenario, it's probably more than enough. Simple and functioning always beats complex and hard to pull off. So what actually matters is, can you use it confidently while engaging with your audience? Does it serve your musical goals without overwhelming you? Can you travel with it and easily set it up on a small space? And will it work reliably every single night? So here's the framework I wish I followed from the beginning. Step 1, define your performance goals, not your gear goals. What experience do you want to create? And what do you want to be able to do live that you can't do as a DJ? Step 2, start with your simplest version. What is the absolute minimum setup that lets you achieve step 1? Start there. Step 3, perform, don't perfect. Get that simple setup running and perform with it. Even if it's just for friends or on a live stream, you'll learn more in one 30-minute performance than you'll ever learn thinking about it. Step 4, you need to identify your real problems. So after performing, take a moment, what worked, what didn't work. What did you wish you could do and what overwhelmed you? These are your real requirements. And then my last step, step number 5, upgrade with a purpose. Once you've perfected every step before that, add one piece of gear that solves one specific problem that you discovered in step 4, master it and repeat. So here's my current plan. I'm starting Ableton based with the Push 2 and a very basic controller, and that's it. Once I've performed that and gone through the motions a bunch of time, I will start working towards the dream setup, towards using the octatrack and the analog rhythm. So I really went from what gear do I want to perform live with to what gear do I need to play the set that I want to play. The gear follows the performance and not the other way around. So here's your complete framework for choosing your first live setup. Start with your musical goals, begin simple, and let real experience guide your gear decisions rather than great fantasies. But here's what I'm discovering as I'm building my first live set. Even with the right approach to gear, there's still one massive challenge that no one talks about. How do you actually structure your live set so your tracks move smoothly from one track to another? You blend your tracks and you can manipulate them live without it just sounding like you're playing through a playlist. So in my next video, I will document my process of building my first live set arrangement, including all the mistakes I'm probably going to be making and the strategies I'm learning throughout. Because this is where the rubber meets the road, turning a bunch of tracks into a full live performance. So if this helped you overcome that overwhelm trap that I fell into, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, are you team start simple? Or are you always just going for that dream setup right from the beginning? So I'm very curious to hear where you stand after hearing about my experience.